Hey, Facebook friends. Yeah, everybody out there in Facebook land. Um, I am here with Chris and Jen, and we'll probably introduce ourselves a couple times because I can see Facebook is still connecting, which is fine. So we are coming to you from California and Canada, and this is Peggy Hall from BeHealthyAmerican.org. And I just got a phone call from this amazing guy, Chris, in Canada, and Jen have been making waves, I'm going to say north of the border. And I am so happy to hear this because you don't want to be the lone voice in the wilderness, and even in Canada, it's even more amazing to me because we always think of Americans, especially in the West, like the Western part of the United States, like we're the cowboys, we're in the Wild West and we're not going to take anything from anybody. But I tell you, people are rolling over and just being so compliant. So what I want to do, Chris, is turn it over to you and let us know about your websites, what you've been doing. I want to hear about the how you got the moms involved in particular and about your everything. So take it away, give yourself an introduction and let's hear what's going on.
All right. Well, I'm Chris Sky, S-K-Y. You can find me on Facebook. This is my wonderful wife, Jenny. She was just saying, too, she's actually an American citizen from Texas. So we're a perfect example of Canada and the U.S. coming together, literally. So it's good. It works out really well.
I was the one that was telling him, like, why is everybody at home? Like, in Texas, we would be outside with our guns.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that is so true. And so yeah, tell us how that unfolded. When did you guys get these orders? And tell me where are you exactly in Canada?
Right now, we're in just outside of Toronto. We live in a suburb called King City, which is about 30 minutes north of Toronto. So we're basically still part of the GTA. We do a fair bit of traveling. So when COVID was actually taking off around the world, we were in Asia, we were in Europe, we were in Italy actually just a few days before they locked the country down. We basically escaped right before it happened. But when we were there at the peak of the virus, I was going to the gym, we were shopping, we were going to restaurants, like everybody was living like it was normal. So when we came home and they were making such a big deal out of this COVID, we didn't understand why everybody was freaking out because we were at the so-called epicenter and everybody was cool. Then all of a sudden March came around and they did the lockdown. We were like 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I was like, this isn't going to be 2 weeks. This is going to be their way in and they're going to try to do a whole bunch of bad stuff to us over the next coming months. And they're going to use COVID as the excuse. Sure enough, they started locking down the businesses. That kind of scared me because in Canada, we rely on small business. Small business represents 70% of all Canadian jobs. 97% of all the businesses in Canada are small businesses. So if small businesses go away, our economy is done. So I started a Facebook group called Backtowork just to try to bring awareness to this. And that was around the same time that the protest started in Toronto. So I've never been to a protest in my life or anything, ever. We just heard that some people might be gathering in Toronto. So my wife and I went down there and sure enough, there was about a couple hundred people there. Some small news outlets were there and I did a small interview with one. And then a couple of people came over and said, you sound like you know what you're talking about, you should speak. And I was very reluctant. I didn't want to be in the public eye. I didn't want to speak to anybody. So I said no. And then my wife pulled me aside and said, you know what's going on. You know how to speak to people. You know how to get things done. She's like, you know what's going on. So if you don't speak and you don't do anything, everything that happens is going to be your fault. That's what she said. So I started speaking at the rallies and I became one of the main organizers and one of the speakers, and Backtowork took off online. So I made it into a nonprofit officially. And we have a program to help all the small businesses that are struggling in the Greater Toronto area and all over Ontario. I can explain it really quick. So people are scared of the government. They're scared of the bylaw infractions. They're not really scared of COVID. And they're scared of being alone and they're scared of the legal system. So I wanted to give them a program that provides them unity and the courage they need and the information they need to stand up, say, no, we're not taking this. We're going to make some money. We're going to keep our business alive and we're going to feed our family and you're not going to call us criminals for trying to do so, basically. So I set up a website called Backtowork, www.backtowork.bz, and it's for Ontario businesses. And we set up a fund there as well. So if a business wants to sign up, they put $100 into the fund and they sign up. I get an email with their name and their business and everything else, and I'm the only person that knows all the businesses in the network, so it's completely anonymous. Once I get their information, I contact them. I go to their actual business so I can see the specific layout, the type of business it is, etc. The first thing we do is go through their lease. In Canada, and everybody needs to know this, and a lot of people don't know this, about 1 out of 3 leases have a clause written in there that says if you're forced closed by the government, you are not responsible for rent during that time. Your landlord is not going to tell you. They're going to collect your money and they're going to tell you you owe rent unless you tell them, no, I don't. So that's the first thing we do. And that helps about 1 out of 3 people right there save their business, because if they don't have to pay their rent and they already laid off most of their employees and they're collecting unemployment, more than likely they're okay. The next thing we do is we go to the guidelines for their specific business. Using the actual guidelines and we combine with their business type and the layout, I come up with an adaptive business model that allows them to generate revenue, even though they're technically not allowed to be open. So it's a balance between following the law to the best that they can, but also still being able to provide for their family. Now, we realize that some of these people are going to be on the cusp and they could get visits if somebody gives them a hassle, or they might do something else that makes them get a visit from a bylaw officer. It's inevitable eventually at some point. So we set up a legal team that looks after every business simultaneously in the network. So they have 24-hour contact. So if anybody gets any type of problem, they can call me, they call the lawyer. Finally, we have a legal fund that we set up for the businesses that the businesses themselves pay into when they join up, and that we get funded for private citizens and our initiatives like the medical exemption cards that we use that I'll talk about as well, to fund the legal fund, and it'll fully pay people's legal fees. So with all those things combined, it gave businesses that extra push to not comply. Everything we're doing in this entire campaign of ours is about united non-compliance to things that we know are not in our best interest for ourselves, our families, and for society. And closing down people's businesses en masse for a virus that has over a 99% survival rate is not a good trade-off, especially when
Chris, yeah, I just want to jump in because I have to say your tagline, united non-compliance, is just gold. That is brilliant, because those are the two things that we really need. We need to be united. And that's one of the messages that I share, because people feel so alone. They are afraid, and they are complying because their work operating out of fear, but they don't realize that they're actually making it, as I say, worse on themselves, because it's worse. And it's going to be even tougher down the road. So I love that united non-compliance. I love that it's anonymous, so that these businesses are not going to be targeted for, operating in, like you say, you're still operating, it's legal. You're helping them find out their lease, which is brilliant. I'm going to have to see if that, and anybody watching here, you business owners, dig into your lease. I don't know if that happens in the United States, or it's probably state by state. And the other thing you said was you gave them ways to generate income. Talk about that just for a few minutes, because I'm really curious. Is this like online business or delivery, or?
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. Say there's a single mother that runs a salon. She's got a 3-chair hair salon. She's in a building. She's on the 4th floor of the building. And it's just a random unit in the 4th floor of a building. So I tell her, keep your door closed. Keep your door locked, turn the lights off at the front, but take appointments, stagger your appointments, so you can still see your clients. Your clients that are coming there are not going to rat you out because they want your service. And if you're doing one at a time and you have people waiting outside in their car or waiting down the road until you call them and you're ready for them, and they have to walk into a separate entrance, get in an elevator, go to the 4th floor, walk into the hall just to get to your place, the chances of you getting a visit from a bylaw officer are slim to none. Now, if a bylaw officer actually does show up, there's plenty of things you're legally allowed to be doing at your business. Cleaning, training, getting anything ready so you can be opening, because they keep telling us every day you're going to be open, but they won't give you a date. So it's perfectly logical for someone to be at their business and doing upkeep and whatever have you, because they're anticipating being open soon. So as long as you don't have more people in there than you're legally allowed to have by the limits, and as long as they don't come in there and see staff working and taking things and the door's wide open and you have a bell when people are coming in and you have a lineup outside the door, you're not going to have a problem. And I proved it because we've opened dozens of businesses. We have a 100% opening success rate, and we have a 0% bylaw infraction rate. Now, if you own a nightclub or something, I probably can't help you. But if you're one of these business owners, like 90% of business owners, even small gyms, personal training studios, we've opened up clinics. We've opened up laser clinics, chiropractors, photography studios, salons, massage places. Pretty much any small business, unless it's a business that operates with a huge capacity and high density. Those are the only ones that obviously are a little bit more challenging at this stage. But those are the people that need to support the other businesses as well as the essential businesses, because the essential businesses are just as essential as the so-called non-essential businesses.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
All together on that. And what you said, with regards to what you said about united non-compliance, that's the message we push, because as we know, their weapon is fear and through ignorance. They use the media and the government to lie to everybody, to feed them these scary propaganda. And once they're afraid, they can't think. So they just want you to be told what to do. Now, for the people that doesn't work on, their next method is division. They want people to feel alone, helpless. So they divide us into smaller and smaller factions. And I want everybody to understand that. They started right off the bat with people who believe in the government propaganda and are scared of the virus versus the people who don't. Then they started dividing people literally between essential and non-essential, the workers and people collecting payments. Then they try to divide us by race. In the US, they were very successful causing race riots. They tried that every week at our protests with different groups. But thankfully, in Canada, we're very, very multicultural, very diverse, and it always backfired on them. So we want everyone to understand that in order to make people free, the truth must be widespread, and we got to dispel the ignorance. That's the most important thing. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to spread that message of truth. And that will bring me on to Mothers Against Distancing. That was our next initiative. And I'm very excited about it because the response was absolutely enormous. Facebook, the very day I made the group MAD, Mothers Against Distancing, they put a disclaimer when you tried to join the group that would send you to the WHO or CDC websites. And still, right off the bat, thousands and thousands of people started joining. Within 2 weeks, my counter said I had over 25,000 member acceptances. Meanwhile, the member count was only like 6,000 according to Facebook. Then they just disabled all the counts whatsoever once I hit over 30,000 members. So we're around 35,000 members in about 3 weeks, international members, and they're all listening because everybody, even the mothers that buy the propaganda, even the ones that want to stay home, even the ones that want to wear the mask, do not want to send their kids to one of those schools. And I'm sure you can understand that. And that's why you did your mask thing. And I want to tell everybody, before I talk about mask, I want you to tell us how you stopped the masks, because I want to be able to do that here. And I want everybody to have that knowledge.
Well, you know what, Chris, you and I are going to have to collaborate on the American side of this Back to Work. The name is brilliant. And the fact that you're actually helping people, really, you're helping them legally, and you're helping them anonymously, and you're helping the people who need the services, and you're helping the owners who, put in their blood, sweat, and tears into their business. And this is one of the most common emails that I get, and I get thousands of emails, as I'm sure you do. This is one of the most common ones I get, is about the business. How do I keep it open? I'm being harassed. You're calling it the bylaw. We have, they call them inspectors here, like somebody coming, an inspector from the health office or something like that. So just to say, people in the US, that's what we call, we would call it an inspector, or they're more like mafia is what they are. I mean, I'll just call them that. So what happened here is, I live in Orange County, and Orange County is one of the smallest counties in California by geography. It's really small, but it's got one of the largest populations. So we've got almost, it's like, I'm just going to round it up to 3.5 million people. Since, they can play with the numbers, I'm going to play with the numbers a little bit. So it's almost 3.5 million people, which is bigger than a lot of states. Okay. Orange County. It's one of the healthiest counties because we live outdoors, people exercise, they take care of their health. Yeah, there's health resources available. There's healthy food. It's a very health oriented lifestyle. I mean, right? The Housewives of OC or whatever, all those OC TV shows. It's a beach culture, laid back, easygoing. And we've had among the fewest numbers of cases and deaths. Let's set aside for a moment that we know those numbers are fuzzy, but yeah, we'll just enter into the fairy tale land, as I call it. But even in the fairy tale land, we still come out really, really well. So the other counties around us, like you've probably heard of Riverside County, San Bernardino County, Ventura County, they didn't have any mask requirement. But out of the blue, like 3 months into this whole shenanigans, they said you have to wear a mask, and it's ordered. You're ordered to do it, which is our health officer has a limited authority, which only can last for 7 days. And here we're 3 months in, and they're ordering things. And you know what? People are so gullible, and they're so ignorant in that they don't have the information. And because they're operating in fear, they never bothered to look into it. So I looked into it. I'm like, I'm not going to wear a mask. I haven't worn a mask. I don't plan on wearing a mask. And I'm not going to wear a mask because I don't need a mask. And I was so upset by this when my husband came home and said, well, they're requiring masks. I mean, I had a meltdown, and I'm like, okay, this is my stake right here. This is my claim. I am not going to let the mask thing go. I kind of played along a little bit, like when they told me not to go to work. Like, well, what am I going to do? My school is closed. I can't very well go to it. So I grumbled. I was arguing with people on Facebook. I was doing all the research. And my husband's like, stop arguing with people on Facebook. Why don't you make a video and explain to people on YouTube, because people like to watch videos on YouTube, it's a different venue. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a video. And I researched it, and I explained that there is no emergency. There is no emergency. And I don't think there's an emergency anywhere. Maybe in New York, if you wanted to, like you say, fudge the numbers a little. And I just explained it really, really clearly. Here's the numbers. Here's the law. There is no emergency. Therefore, you don't need to wear a mask. You don't need to do the distancing. You don't need to wash your hands. You don't need to do any of that unless you want to, because there is no law. And this got a lot of traction really quickly, kind of like yours. I mean, this just went viral on YouTube, and people started asking me, where do I get the info? Where do I get the info for my state? How, what can we do about it? And I have to say, somebody reached out to me and said, there's a meeting at the county and we can go give our opinion. And like most people, Chris and Jenny, I probably, like, my background is in politics, but I never cared about the government that much. I just wanted to live my life, go to work, enjoy my family, drive on the roads that were good. You shouldn't have to worry about the government, in my opinion. They should be so just like under the radar that you shouldn't have to always keep your eye on them. And I realized that's not the case. So I figured out what these laws were and how they allowed this health officer, to issue them. And when I dug deeper, I found out he can't. First of all, it's very limited. You can't just have this emergency go on for on and on and on. The law in California and probably in Canada says exactly what has to happen. One thing that has to happen is this: the officer has to provide information to the governing body to say, here's why I recommend the mask. He can't just pull it out of his pocket, he's got to have a reason for doing this. So there were a few of us at the first, coming to the meetings, and then pretty soon the word got out and we had hundreds of people. And one after one after one came before the board and said, there were doctors and scientists and parents and teachers and psychologists and kids and just people. You don't have to be any of those, just people saying, this doesn't make sense. You can't force us to do it. We can't even buy food in the store, and we're being harassed. So because of all of that, they, and somebody actually resigned because of all of this. And the other really interesting thing, I don't know if this is happening in Canada, all of these health officers, it was like musical chairs. They got hired, they got fired, somebody else came in, this person came in, they left, this guy came, like within a matter of weeks, okay? What does that say to me? It says they're accountable. That's right. They're trying to find people who are going to be the puppets, because the puppet masters are running the show. These people are placeholders. I mean, even the governor, he doesn't have any power. Somebody's telling him what to say. In a way, I have pity. I have pity for the person, because he's going to be one of the first ones to go, because he's been compliant with the puppet masters. He thinks he's going to be rewarded with money and fame and power. It's the exact opposite. They get rid of the people that dance to the tune, because they know that they're so easy that if somebody else comes in, they'll go follow them. So these puppets are the first to go, and we can see that. So they got rid of one of them, and they the following day they rolled back and they said the masks are no longer required. They're strongly recommended. Now I wanted to say something, but I wanted to say something here is so many people brought the science, which is so obvious. We breathe oxygen. It's obvious the masks don't work. There's no evidence that shows they work. It's the exact opposite. They make you sicker. But here's the thing. I personally don't even want to talk about the science anymore, because they are going to bring people to say that carbon dioxide is good for you. So that's why I'm sticking right to, like you're talking about it, united non-compliance. I'm showing people, I'm showing people how they can go shopping without a mask. They're not breaking any law. I show them how to bring the paper. They don't say a word. They actually have the person in the store read it in their own words that says they can shop without a mask. And then it really works. I've never had to wear a mask. And then I want to hear about your medical cards also. But so this is what happened in Orange County. The state of California still has no mask mandate. The media tried to spin it to show, and we're going around educating people, and it's working. I can see people using my own words on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, because the word is getting out. No governor in the United States can make a law. It's not possible. No mayor can make a law, and they try to make it appear as though they can. So that's where my work is. It's all about education and then inspiration to take action, because a lot of people are like us that have the passion, but they don't know what to do. And they're like, oh my gosh, what can I do? And it's like, here's what you can do. You can share the info, you can do the phone calls, you can go to the meetings, and it's working. So that's what we're up to.
So, see, you are a little more fortunate than us in Canada. They actually allow you guys to come to meetings. They actually allow you to speak to the government. When we try to speak to the government and we try to even ask them where they're getting their data, where they're getting their numbers, where they're getting their information from, you know what they tell us? We're listening to our experts. Okay, so what's the data? We can't tell you what the data is. Okay, so who's the expert so we can talk to them? For their safety, we can't tell you who the experts are. So every 2 weeks, they meet in secret without Parliament, and they just tell us, the experts told us we need to continue lockdown, and we can't tell you why, and we can't tell you who the experts are. And everybody in Canada is just perfectly okay with that for the most part, except for people like us. So then when they said they're going to do the mask mandate, I already know. This is what my church says.
I love it.
Essential. That's not just a tagline. It's the 100% truth. See, when you got them to roll it back to strongly recommended for masks, that's fine. You can strongly recommend something. I will not oppose whatever you strongly recommend. However, the moment you make something mandatory and you force the people to give up their rights for no good reason, and there's no good reason to give up your rights,
that's
even
right.
a pandemic, no matter what they try, then you have already lost. Because the next thing is, mandated contact tracing. And now you've given up your privacy rights and you've given up your freedom of mobility. Why? Because they can't legally take it from you. But if they can get you scared and convince you to give it up yourself en masse, then they haven't taken it from you. You've given it to them. And then that's going to lead to mandatory vaccines. And then we have no more medical autonomy. So at that point, you've already complied with all their so-called new normals, and you've complied with their new normals in your mind in order to go back to normal. But if you comply with the new normals, that is your new normal. So we have to get that through to people's head. So as soon as they told us that they're going to do the mask mandate, I did a speech on Saturday. And just like you said, I said, that was my line in the sand. I literally drew a line in the sand. I said, this is where we have to stop it. But if we don't stop the mask, it's going to be the progression, as I said. So I told everybody, I had spoken with Rocco Galati. He has 40 years experience. He just filed the largest lawsuit in Canadian history last week, 189 charges against the government. I'm going to be doing a speech, speaking with him as well. But so me and him have been going back and forth about this whole issue, and I get legal advice and stuff from him. So with him in my corner, we knew that they have the medical exemption law for the masks. Why do they have that? Because the law is bogus. The law is not legal. So they have to provide you a legal exemption in order for you to be able to get yourself out of it. But in the media, they tell you that you really don't, and they try to trick you. So I gave a speech on Saturday, and I told everybody, all you have to do is go and say, I have a medical condition. Doesn't matter if it's physiological, psychological. They can't ask you what it is. They can't ask for proof, and they cannot deny you service under the Discrimination Against the Disabled Persons Act in Canada. So I said this to people. That very same night, one of our protesters went to the hospital for what she thought was a broken finger, and she went there without a mask, but she didn't say the line. She just told them, I'm not wearing a mask, too bad, and she videotaped it. So they made her look like she was aggressive, and they escorted her out. Video went viral. Even in the States, went like 10 million views. So I was like, okay, I need to make a video that shows that what I said actually worked, because now people are going to think I'm crazy. So I went to Longo's. Longo's a supermarket. They're very pro-mask. They make it very obvious that they will not let you in without a mask. So I went in on video and I said, I have a medical condition. The girl physically tried to stop me from going in the thing by hitting me with her elbow and slamming a door on me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I have it on video. The anti-mask, the mask wearers are very violent. I've been assaulted multiple times for not wearing a mask. That's another story. But I got into Longo's. Security and everybody came, threatened me. I said, you can threaten me all you want. You can call the police right now. I already told her I have a medical condition. And if you call the police, I'm going to sue you guys for discrimination against disability, and I'll charge your employee with assault. So I grabbed what I needed, which was maple syrup, and I stood in line. They came to harass me in the line and said, leave, the cops are on their way. No one's going to check you out. I said, I'm going to wait when it's my turn. If you don't check me out, yeah, we will wait for the cops. Sure enough, when it was my turn, they checked me out. The video went viral, as well as Letitia's. So that night, we did a video together like me and you are doing. And that's when I had, because on July 7th, the mandatory mask law became mandatory and law in all of Toronto, which is Greater Toronto area is almost 5 million people. So we're like, this is where we got to make our stand. So I announced a protest on the TTC, our public transit. And I said, we're going to bring men, women, and children. No one's wearing a mask. And we're all going to go on the TTC to prove to everybody that you do not have to wear a mask. You have a choice. That's what we want to show. Everyone has freedom of choice. That video went viral. The city got so many calls from people trying to get us shut down that Mayor John Tory had to do a press conference live and tell everybody what we were doing was perfectly legal. They wouldn't be able to deny us service. And me and the protesters were going to have a nice ride on the TTC. Tuesday morning, July 7th, we went to go do the protest. It went off just as we thought. Got amazing mainstream media coverage. We got everybody to go on. There was no problems at all. And we proved that you do not need a mask. What happened next? Everybody started asking us how we did it. So I came up with an idea that we could make a campaign because we wanted to make MAD a registered charity, both in Canada and the US. So it's very expensive to do so. So we decided we were going to make these cards, medical exemption cards, because all they need to say is, I have a medical condition. The card, you don't need a card. The card can just be a little piece of cardboard if you want that says, I have a medical condition on it, because it's just about what it says. So they're educational tools of awareness to let everybody know that they have freedom of choice. And they double as a fact that they actually do work, because once you show people that card that says, I have a medical condition, they have to serve you. Today they ran multiple mainstream media and our biggest news outlets. trying to tell people do not use the cards, they're fraudulent, they're fake. But what they leave out is they work because it's a valid reason. They don't need to be issued by the government for them to be working. And they admit that people are showing up to hospital emergency rooms with them and getting in and not wearing the mask because it works. So we made these cards, they started going around, and now people are going crazy for them. And what does that tell you? People do not want to wear the mask. People are not complying because they're scared of COVID. They're not complying because they think the mask works, which we all know a cloth mask does not stop viral transmission. They're wearing it because they're scared of the government and scared of the next person that's going to yell and scream at them. So we want to dispel that myth, because the only way we're going to win is united non-compliance. So along with the mask, along with the cards, we started getting people to film their experiences to show how they can get into the store without the mask. And we call it the Mask Off Challenge. So we get anybody random, even if they don't have the card, even if they just use the excuse, I have a medical condition. Once they're in the store, they make a quick video showing themselves shopping without a mask. And we post it on our MAD group, and we post it on our personal Instagram, and everybody gets to see it. And we're trying to get hundreds and hundreds of these videos. We've had dozens so far, and it's only been a couple days. The last initiative we're doing, and I think you guys could benefit from this in the States as well, I wrote a flyer that once a business puts it in their window, it indemnifies them from the bylaw officer because it acknowledges the medical exemption option for their clients and informs the clients that if they do have a medical exemption, they can feel free to remove their mask without informing the staff. So what does this do for the business? It makes it so if a bylaw officer comes in there and people aren't wearing masks, the sign already explains that that person must have a medical condition,
Right.
because so they can't give a fine to the business owner. It also makes it so the business owner doesn't have to hire an employee just to watch the door and waste all that money and make the place less friendly. And number three, it makes a store that was 5 minutes ago a mandated mask store into a freedom of choice store. So with those three initiatives, we plan on punking so many holes in their so-called mask mandate that it just becomes irrelevant. So when they try to do the contact tracing, which they already are trying to do, people just reject it en masse. And that's what we got to do, because if we do not reject the mandates will keep progressing. People have to understand this. You do not stop them by complying with them. You stop them by telling them, no, that's not right, and no, we're not going to do that. So unlike you, I don't think we can go to the city and have meetings with them and we need to turn the public against them on the internet, on the TV, so people just don't wear it. And when enough people see the other ones not wearing it, it just becomes a joke. So that's what we're trying to do. And so far, I think it's working really well. We're getting attention like crazy. It's insane. And they don't know how to deal with us, because how do you deal with people that are simply telling the truth? You can slander us as much as you want. People have to hear the truth one time. They have to lie to people over and over and over again with as many people as possible to convince them. But as soon as they hear us speak once, as soon as they see that card work, they know that everything they're saying is a lie. So the truth is going to set people free, literally.
I love that, Chris. I love all of that. I love the Mask Off Challenge. I think that's fantastic. And people sharing their videos, and that is empowering. And like you say, a lot of people don't want to wear the mask, and they don't know they don't have to. I was at a store. How I normally do it is I went to like Marshall's, which is like a little small department store. And I saw two people, like you say, at the entrance, the mask police, like one young kid, wearing a mask, probably hating it. And I walked up, I thought, oh gosh. So I didn't even have the paper on me. So I quick brought up the orders on the phone, and I was just going to show them. And I walked up, and here's what I do is I say, can you let me know the accommodations for someone who can't wear a mask? And I just say can't wear a mask because I can't wear a mask. I just cannot wear a mask. And like you say, they can't ask you why. They cannot ask you why. And the woman looked at me, and I think she never had anybody ask her before. She probably had people just, walking in or something. And she was like, oh, just stay away from other people. I'm like, okay, I'll stay away from other people. So I'm going through the aisles, and I'm looking at clothes and all. I kid you not, they had hanging on the rack these little hoodies, and it said across it, breathe. I'm like, is this a joke? So I bought it. and I bought it and I should have worn it today. And I saw another lady, an older lady, and she said, they let you in without a mask? And I said, oh yeah, I can't wear one. And if you can't wear one, they have to let you in too. I wish I had one of my cards to give her that explains it. Because at thehealthyamerican.org, I've got different cards that are educational. And one side you give to people and it says, there is no law that requires masks. You don't have to wear a mask unless you're comfortable. No store can prevent you. Your service. And if you get harassed, you call law enforcement. And I have that. And then on the other side, it's for the business. And it says to the business owner, there is no law that requires you to make your patrons or employees wear a mask. You cannot refuse service and you cannot ask them why they don't have a mask on. And if you harass them, law enforcement will be called. So these are being used to educate people who want to shop without a mask, and also the business owners. And you know what, Chris and Jen, they hate what we're doing because it's the truth, and evil hates the truth. And I love what you said. Lying has to happen on an ongoing basis, and the truth is irrefutable. And we have to get rid of the fear so that people can actually hear the truth, because fear will blind the people. You can show them the actually in black and white, and they will still, can't believe it. So yeah, go ahead.
United non-compliance comes in, because that's what gives the scared people the courage to stand up and the courage to be able to overcome the fear so they can digest the information. And then once they're awake, they can't go back to sleep again. And then once they're awake, they're going to wake other people up. So we got to infect people with the truth. And we got to give them that. We got to give them the hope and the courage that let them know that they're not alone. And that's what these cards are so good at, because so many people are going to have them. Everybody's going to talk about them when they have them. All the people that don't have them are going to be jealous. And it just creates that whole worldwide momentum. And that's what we need. Need this entire conversation to be about these masks and about more and more people rejecting them. And I've got to say today, because people are wondering, oh, what did you do with the money that you made from the card? I already paid all the legal fees and lawyer bills and started the process to make MAD an official charity. By next week, we'll have nonprofit status, and it takes a couple months to get the actual charity status. So we did that already for Canada. And the next step, since I have a wonderful American citizen of a wife, we're going to register MAD as a nonprofit and a charity in the United States, so we can officially join the two movements together. Yeah. So that's where the money.
I love it. And since it's MAD, Mothers Against Distancing, what are some of the initiatives you're doing with the moms? Is it like the mask off and the cards?
We got huge initiatives going on. Okay. That was the whole, this campaign was built around massive awareness to mothers and fathers through their children, because nothing's more important than their children to any parent, and nothing's more important to our society than the children. Children are our future. We must protect them. That's the slogan for MAD. And what it is we want to show the psychological and physiological damage that social distancing isolation will have on children, especially in the academic setting over a prolonged period. It's one thing to have your children socially distanced and isolated with their families at home, away from other people for a few weeks. They already start showing anxiety, antisocial behavior. We see it at our protests. We had kids that were isolated for 3-4 weeks, like 3-4-year-old children, and then they come and try to socialize with groups of kids, and they're literally afraid to go and talk to them. And that's after they've just been isolated for 3 weeks with their mom and dad. So when we saw the guidelines they had for the schools, which was 0 contact at any time, they have lines on the floor that are 6 feet apart, so you can never get more than 6 feet in front, away from another student, eliminated cafeterias, eliminated lockers, eliminated gym class, eliminated music class, eliminated art class. You sit at one desk, which is socially distanced from everybody else the entire day, eat at your desk, work at your desk, can't talk to anybody. They're going to have smaller class sizes, so you're going to get split up from your thing. They want a staggered day so kids aren't going to get as much education. There's no upside to it. Also, so-called protect our children from COVID. In Canada, in the 0 to 20 category, we have not had one death from COVID. Zero deaths. But they want to put our kids into this combination of a prison mental institution for over a decade to fully social engineer them into compliant slaves. So we want to make mothers aware, fathers aware, and they are aware, because they're joining in droves. And it's not just those types of situations. We want to make it aware that this is happening in all the public and private healthcare systems all across Canada. We had a mother on the, we have our initiative on MAD works 3 ways. We have the Facebook group where we post stuff and we post all the antics we're doing, like the TTC protests and everything. So people know that we're the ones spearheading all these initiatives that are making a difference. So MAD is the most relevant group on the internet today because we're discussing the most relevant stuff. And we're the ones that are spearheading or are involved with every major agenda in Canada that's fighting this, every which way. So people respect us and people know that's where you go for that information. So we have the Facebook group. We have a website that's www.getmad.online, and we're going to be adding more and more sections. The first section we're going to be adding there is an immunity section. Rather than wearing a mask and social distancing, why don't we just get everybody healthy? So if COVID comes, they become one of those 80 or 85% of people that are completely asymptomatic and don't even know they have it unless they go for a test. That's what we want to do. So that's one of the other initiatives, is giving information about real health. Then we made a show called Mad World. I have a TV studio in downtown Toronto that love what we're doing. So they give me their studio whenever I want. And I have a co-host and we have guests on the show and we discuss exactly what I'm talking about. Our first guest was a lady named Sarah Clarkson, and she was there to discuss the private and public healthcare facilities. She had a brother who was mentally and physically disabled in a car accident. So he lives in a private assisted living care facility, one of the most high-end ones where you're paying a lot of money for a specific elevated level of care. Since COVID, the new guidelines that came in from a man named Mr. Todd Smith from the Ministry of Children's and Psychological Affairs has put in his own guidelines that apply to all public and private healthcare facilities. So you could have your person in a private facility where you're paying triple the amount of money, but they're getting the exact same level of care and you have to follow the same guidelines. And the guidelines at the start of COVID, for 3 months, her brother, who's mentally and physically handicapped in a wheelchair on the first stages of dementia, was not even able to see any of his family for 3 or 4 months. Then when they came out with the guidelines, you have to take a COVID test, health screening. You have to be 6 feet apart at all times, mask at all times, have to be outside, and no physical contact of any kind. And the most disturbing of all is the caregiver has to be there with the person to monitor your meeting. So you do not even get any privacy with your family member. So if they're being neglected, if they're being abused, their neglector, their abuser is right there beside them with a hand on their shoulder while you're 6 feet apart. They probably can't even recognize you because you're in a mask. And these are applying universally on all the care facilities. And it's absolutely destroying families from the inside out. So there's no upside to social distancing. Like, they're talking about the deaths from COVID, the fallout from the consequences of the lockdown. In California alone, I saw that suicides were up 900%. Overdoses and stuff are incalculably higher because they can't even see how many people are dying. Divorces are all through the roof. Domestic violence is through the roof. But they ignore every other consequence of their actions. And that's what we're going to. That's what Mad World is about. It's about bringing this to light. So that was our first episode. Our second episode, we hope to get Dr. Tenpenny from the United States to do a live chat that I'm going to set up in the studio so we can have her on screen and we can do a discussion. And we're going to discuss COVID in its totality. She is the absolute queen. She offered $100,000 to anybody to debate her on COVID live. Nobody took that. I wouldn't have taken it. That's for damn sure. Not to go against her. That's for sure. But we're going to discuss COVID. We're going to discuss the testing. We're going to discuss the reporting of the deaths. We're going to discuss the veracity of the disease. It's everything. She's going to lay it all out on the line. And when people hear her, we get a lot more credible. Because right now they're trying to slander me. They tell me I'm not a doctor. They tell me this. They tell me that. Anything they can say. So that's why I'm trying to get the best doctors to do interviews and approve of what we're saying. I'm getting the top lawyers to go around and approve of what we're saying. Rocco Galati made a Facebook update that perfectly described everything I said about the cards. So now everybody knows what I said is true, regardless of what I have in the videos. You have a guy with 40 years experience telling you. So we're combining the most powerful resources in all the different areas we need to get that potent result and that potent public opinion. Because that's how we're going to beat this. Because they're using public opinion against us, and we got to turn it around.
You said it exactly. You said it exactly, Chris. And I'm glad that we're kind of going to do the whole North American, uh, you know, things here. I just love the way that you think, and you're so clear on your initiatives, and it's easy to follow. And I just love that because we can very uh, easily understand this is what you're working on, this is why, and these are the results that you want. It's irrefutable. And I have to say, when people say to me, oh, you're so selfish, you're killing people with your words. I'm sure you've heard that you're a murderer, and why can't you look at the science, and you're so selfish. And I'll tell you what, I personally would rather get this, I'll just call it illness, if it saved one animal from being abused by an owner that reached his limit and kicked the dog out of the way. I personally, you want to know how selfish I am? I personally would rather get this if it saved one animal from being abused. I would get this if it saved one child from being abused. I would get this if it saved one of these individuals, as you're saying, in a private or public nursing home or facilities, if they were able to hug their family member. All right, that's where my selfishness comes from. I would be willing to get this if it meant that one business didn't go under. I would be willing to get this if it meant one child was able to go back to school, just one child to go back to school and be able to hug his teacher and play on the playground with his friends. So you want to talk about selfish, you people that are wearing a mask, you people that are in favor of this criminal activity behind closed doors of our most vulnerable population. You can see I'm getting upset here. How about the elderly? How about the infirm? How about those in a hospital? You're okay with that? So you want to talk about me being selfish because I draw my line in the sand? Let's have this conversation. And you don't even need to give me $100,000. Okay. Let's have that conversation. And you know what? No one will have it. They won't have that conversation. They'll block me. And I don't even care because they're not the ones I'm speaking to. We're speaking to those that are almost awake or who are awake and who are just saying, what can I do? So we're going to send them to MAD, and we're going to send them to the Back to Work. I mean, these campaigns are brilliant.
I would love to expand both of them to the United States. I think California is probably one of the states that would benefit from Back to Work more than anywhere in the entire world. But you guys have literally the 8th largest economy in the entire world, and you're a state. It's insanity. So the amount of businesses suffering there, compared, like Ontario and Toronto has more business than anywhere else in Canada exponentially, but compared to California, we're like a pinprick. So you guys have a big problem, but we might have a solution for you. And what is the solution that we've been saying? United non-compliance. And there's nothing better than uniting two countries together. And that's what we want to do. And we're going to make MAD. I'm going to try to do it just as early as next week if I can get the funding to start MAD as a registered charity and nonprofit in the U.S. So we can start doing joint initiatives, because everybody needs to wake up. We need to start getting MAD World on social media. People with millions of followers need to share these videos so millions and millions of people can get it. Our entire goal with MAD is that we reach enough people that by September, there is not a parent in North America that is crazy enough to send their child to school unless those schools are back to normal. In Ontario, they gave us 3 options. One option was back to normal. One option was staggered days with small class and social distancing. And the other option was homeschool, the online stuff that they've been doing. The online stuff is no good because it makes the kids isolated. The social distancing at the schools is the worst by far. But option number 1 was back to normal. They had to put it on the table because they know the people are already wanting that. So it's not going to be that hard for us to wake the people up for something they know is right, for something they want, and when it comes to their children. Because they might be so scared that they don't want to leave their house. They might even be so scared that they won't go open their business. But when it comes to the life and livelihood of their children, even the most compliant, even the most meek and mild will stand up and fight for their children. So once we reach, even if we can only wake up 1 out of 100, and that's a conservative estimate, once we reach 100 million plus, we have an army of over 1 million active, awake, ready to act people who, the most important thing is, are not afraid. Because once they are no longer afraid, they cannot be manipulated. They cannot be controlled. They cannot be told what to do. And they will get angry. They will get mad. And once you're mad, you will act in your own best interest. And that's what we want. That's why the slogan is get mad. Because when you're scared, you won't do anything. When you're mad, everybody knows when you're mad, you act. Whether it's acting up, screaming and yelling and waking people up, or it's something, you do something physical, you will act. So that's the entire point. Educate, make aware, show how ridiculous this is, show how damaging it is. We want them to be so aware that when they hear that propaganda on the TV, rather than get them scared, it just makes them mad. That's the whole purpose of MAD. And I think it's a perfect acronym. I think it's a perfect name. I think it's a perfect group. I think it's a perfect message. And I think it's absolutely going to be unstoppable. And it's going to galvanize this entire movement. And it's going to unite everybody together. Because nobody can say protecting the children is not a top priority. And they can't slander you about it. They can't call you selfish. They can't say anything. And as for those people that say we're selfish because we're not wearing the mask, or we're dictating this or that. No. We're advocating freedom of choice. That is the least selfish thing possible. We're standing up for your rights, your ability to make your own decisions, which is paramount to society. And what are we getting for it? Absolute backlash, absolute negative reaction, death threats, slashed tires, defamation of character. The list goes on and on. So what are we getting out of helping these people? We're getting negative consequences, and we're still doing it. And the best part is, we're not telling you not to wear a mask. We're telling you to do what you want. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. The problem is when you're telling us that we have to wear a mask because you want to wear a mask, that's absolutely ridiculous. So if you go to McDonald's and order a cheeseburger, do I got to get the same thing on it, or are you going to get mad at me?
Exactly. Yeah, I love it. It's like, I'm like, hey, so if you go on a diet, I'll lose weight. I like it. I like it. Yeah.
Mask works. Why do I need to wear one? Number one. Then they talk about the vulnerable and the sick. If you're vulnerable and you're sick, you should be staying home, number one. If you have to go out, number two, maybe you should get a medical respirator that actually has a filtration system that can actually give some form of protection from viral particles, protecting you and those around you. That would make sense. Even the WHO website says healthy people or asymptomatic people should not wear masks. Masks should be for caregivers or for people showing symptoms. And in those cases, they should be wearing medical respirators, not masks, period. But somehow, people cite the WHO as a source for wearing masks. It makes absolutely no sense. And it's because most people are just watching TV and they're not doing their own research. And that's exactly what it is. But there goes that argument for masks. Because
you're right. Yeah.
The freedom of choice is not more important than being told, doing what you're told, period.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I've said that too, Chris. Even if this was like the bubonic plague and people were dropping down left and right, you still should have the choice if you want to get it or not. And you're saying the people that are sick and vulnerable, they're the ones that should be staying outside and getting their food served. We healthy ones should be able to go in the store and shop. Why should the ones wearing a mask go in the restaurant and go in the store and go in the hair salon? They're the ones that should be staying outside. They're the ones that should have a doctor's order to say that they are required to wear a mask, because those masks are nasty. Those masks are spreading germs, not me and not you. So they're the ones that should have a special, exemption to be able to wear a mask. It's the complete opposite. So I'm with you. I'm with you 100 million%. And I love that we're collaborating, because I want to do, cross-pollination and coordination and collaboration. We got to have these coalitions of groups that are working, like there's some groups that are super strong in the vaccines, and that's not what I've been working on right now, because that's not what I'm working on. But hop on board. Let's tackle that when the time comes. I mean, we've done a lot with the schools, because like you, we've got that same thing. We had another great victory in Orange County. So in Orange County, we had the, it's called the county the Orange County Department of Education, and then we have each, I don't know how it is in Canada, we have a state board of education, then we have, every county has one, and then the school districts have their own. And they all have boards that are, elected. And in the county level, they created a commission to study this mask and distancing and all of that. And they had experts. They had the, like you were saying, they had the medical and the legal and the psychological and the science and the educational. And they came back with their study. And the study said, go back to school as normal. There's no reason to do anything different. And then the Board of Education voted whether to accept that study. And they voted to accept it 4-1. And, the one person was wearing a mask who didn't accept it. Now, the school districts still have to decide what they're going to do. And even individual schools can decide, but this is a step in the right direction. We had people going to the meetings. I made a video that blew apart all of this. In the first place, it's just guidance. It's not even a law. And if it's not a law, I don't have to follow it. End of story. It might even be a good idea, but I don't have to follow it. And that's where my voice is coming out to educate people. You're right. They're getting intimidated. They're watching the news and they think these things are laws, and they're not. So we're focusing a lot on the school, and we're going to have a section on the website all about homeschool resources for people who don't want to deal with that anymore. So
yeah, that's a really good idea. We were even looking into that possibility too. If everything blew up in our face and come September, they say, we're only doing social distancing in schools, we were looking at setting up an alternative schooling system, either by generating private homeschooling or just a private school system in general that wouldn't adhere to those guidelines. And I think the response is overwhelming, and I wouldn't even be able to keep up. Just like with the cards.
I love it. Well, you know what, Chris, you have so much energy, and you just dive in and you start swimming. And that's exactly what needs to be done. A lot of people stay on the sidelines because they don't want to rock the boat, or, what if I get in trouble? I don't know how to do it. It's like, let's just do it. And you are really an inspiration to me. As I say, I just love how your ideas are so clear. They're so compelling. It's action that people can take. Some people don't know how to, write the letters. And like you said, you don't even get to speak in front of your public, officials, which is it always like that, or just because of now with this situation?
They made it worse with the pandemic. And every 2 weeks, they have to justify the emergency orders.
Yeah.
And every 4 weeks, they got to reconvene to decide whether they're going to reopen Parliament. And every time they obviously extend the emergency orders without telling us why. This is how corrupt and unaccountable our government has become. We had one MPP, an independent named Randy Hillier, who supported our movement publicly because he voted against the lockdown. So we went and spoke while they were in session. We were speaking outside of Parliament. That's as close as we can get to them. Okay, we have to literally speak outside and hope that they hear us inside with the TVs running. So Randy Hillier came outside and he spoke on our behalf after we finished speaking, and he told us that he tabled an amendment called the Justification Transparency Amendment, which was supposed to force the government to provide the data to show why we were being locked down. Because if you remember, the whole reason we were locked down in the first place was flatten the curve. You heard that about 1 million times a day until they couldn't even lie about the hospitals being empty. In Ontario, in my province, which is the equivalent to your state, we have 493 hospitals. At the peak of COVID in April, we had about 1,300 people in those hospitals. That's like 3 people per hospital. By June 1st, we had around 250 people in those 493 hospitals. So they couldn't even say flatten the curve anymore. Now they just said, we got to let infections come down. But then they were testing 10,000 people a day. As soon as they switched the narrative from flatten the curve to bring infections down because our hospitals are now empty, they started testing 60,000 people a day instead of 10,000 people. Then they started running headlines of how we're getting more and more infected people. Gee, I wonder why. You're doing tests that have up to a 50% false positive rate, and you're testing 600% more people, and then complaining that you're showing tests like false positive. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. So that's how they used to justify. So then we tabled that Justification Transparency Amendment. Guess what they did? They were supposed to vote on it on the Wednesday. They put it on the agenda at the last thing, Tuesday, right when the session was ending. And they called a secret ballot vote. So everybody just wrote yay or nay on a little piece of paper, threw it in a hat, and they counted the yays or nays. Guess what? So they used a secret voting method so you couldn't know who voted yay or nay. They voted against the Justification Transparency Amendment so they wouldn't have to provide the name of the experts or the data so they could just keep locking us down perpetually. So let's say that again. Our government voted against giving us the data and the experts for why they were locking us down. And they did it with a secret ballot vote so you wouldn't even know which of your so-called elected representatives voted against you. That's how our government works. Just like how Trudeau, our prime minister, just arbitrarily banned guns. He just came out one day during the emergency, bypassed Parliament, and said, by the way, 2,000 types of guns are now banned and you're going to have 2 years to turn them in. And then a couple weeks later, he added more to the list. No input, no debate, no vote, no nothing. He just came out he came out of his house for 10 minutes. Hey, everybody, by the way, I'm banning guns. Peace. I'm going to the cottage. See you later. That's how it works in Canada, because Canadians have never seen a government that has done anything like really bad to them. In their mind, the government is their friend. The government is there to protect them. So if the government told them, if you walk on all fours all day, you won't get coronavirus, I think 85% of the population will be walking on their hands and knees right now.
Wow, that is really something. Our governor, he tweeted that all of these bars and restaurants and gyms and all the businesses have to close again. Get this. This is just, this is crazy. So, when I hear this, I don't just go to the news because we know that the news is going to blow everything out. So I went to the actual governor website to look for this new law. And of course there isn't one. He just, like you said, okay, all the businesses close again. But guess what I found on the website? On his governor of California website, the month of July, he proclaimed, get this, Small Business Month. Small Business Month. We're going to celebrate the small businesses. And I don't even know if I have this up on my website. I would love to show it to you. I made a video about it. Small Business Month, that we need to stay, and he called it stay safe, stay local. Like, we need to support the small businesses and their employees. Oh, you mean the ones that you just stepped on? This is how sick and twisted it is. This is evil. And you know what? It's so ridiculous. I mean, a third grader could see through this. That's as bad as your guy coming out saying no guns. Well, I think the no guns is worse, but the whole principle.
I got even worse for you from our government. So our second in command is a deputy PM, Chrystia Freeland. First of all, she's appointed, not even elected. She is so corrupt. She just got paid to write somebody very famous's personal biography, Mr. George Soros. So George Soros is paying paychecks directly to our deputy prime minister to write his biography for him. She's also an author. And in 2012, she wrote a book. And her book title is basically showing you what's going on right now. And she was in an article at the beginning of June stating that our reopening for Canada is going to take until 2021. And she was gushing about how it's going to be months and months and months before we open. And no one could understand why she had such a positive tone for telling us that we're going to be on lockdown. Her book she wrote in 2012 is called Plutocrats: The Rise of the World's Super Rich and the Fall of Everybody Else. So while she's putting policies in play that are destroying small business and sending companies like Walmart and Amazon to record highs, she's writing a book talking about the destruction of the middle class. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And every 2 months, I don't know what they did for you guys in California. Over here, they call it CERB payments, the unemployment, and they keep extending it every 2 months. And obviously, they're going to try to extend it indefinitely and call it a universal income and try to get as many people from that stable independent category to the government dependent category. Because once you're there, when they tell you wear a mask or download the contact tracing app or you're not getting your paycheck, most people will comply because they have no choice. And that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're trying to prevent. But just to go and show you that our government is just as corrupt as yours and just as controlled by these NGOs and these non-government people. It's absolutely disgusting, and they have absolutely no accountability to the normal people. In your case, though, you proved that they kind of do. And I wish we could replicate that here. But the only way we can replicate that here is by people just not doing what they ask.
Yeah, I think I'll be curious. You know what, Chris, we should have another interview down the line because I want to talk a little bit more about going forward and, you know, what's going to come up in the future, because you're absolutely right. These are all puppets. They are all, I call them placeholders. They were put in place on purpose, you know, by design. We have not had fair elections. I mean, I don't think ever. It's just more obvious now. They don't even hide it any longer. At least in the old days, they tried to make you think that you were, you know, participating. But, you know, this guy here that's running our state, he's the nephew of Nancy Pelosi, who really is past her expiration date in terms of serving in the, you know, in our government. And there have been four families that have run California. So, you know, it's like, remember that game where they call it whack-a-mole, one hit, you know, you hit one, another pops up, you hit it down. They're going to keep popping up. And even if we get rid of this governor, another placeholder is going to come in. So I want to wrap up because I do have another interview, but I would like to have another conversation and talk about what our society is going to look like. Because I have some ideas and I want to empower people to not be despairing, because what you said is really important. And I hadn't thought about that. In the United States, we've gotten one payment, and some people didn't even get it because like if they are a, you know, independent person who doesn't pay, or how should I say it? If they don't have money taken out of a paycheck, if they don't earn a paycheck, but they're a business, small business like me, you don't get it because I didn't have it's basically our money that they gave back, and they didn't even give it back because, and because I'm a self-employed, I don't get any employment. So maybe that's lucky for me that I don't have to worry about showing a vaccine in order to get this money. But this is huge what you just said. And I think people have been worried about, I can't go to the grocery store, I can't go to the doctor, I can't send my kid to school. But when it comes to, I can't get my money, we have to think of a new society where we don't have money, you know, or we don't have it as an important place as we do now, like barter and all. So I've been thinking about that, and I just love the way your mind works, and I'm sure you have. Can you give us like a 2-minute, like something hopeful for the future?
Well, of course, we got all these initiatives going. If you looked at us 5-6 weeks ago, they had us painted as some fringe group, some racist far right group. Yeah. It was ridiculous. They tried to do everything they could to ostracize us, to make people not want to listen to us and not want to hear our message. Now millions of people know who we are. Back to Work is taken off. When the second wave hits, which we all know is coming, like you said, they already started relocking down California. What do you think is going to happen in the fall when we have actual flu season and millions of people have been wearing masks for months, killing their friggin' immune system? Of course they're going to lock us down. And that's when Back to Work's going to shine, because that's when the desperation is going to kick in. And when people are desperate, survivability overcomes fear. And that's when the people are going to act. So I know that that's going to be successful. I know that we're going to reach a crazy amount of people with MAD. So going forward, people just got to understand that awareness works. We're waking people up. We're getting people mad. We're getting people to act. And we're going to get people to do what they need to do to protect themselves, protect their family, protect their children. And we're doing it with everybody's help. Everybody has to understand that they're all important in this. Everybody's voice is important. When you go around and you tell one person, that person's going to tell someone else. And that's how this works. That's how we infect the people with the truth. And we're making such headway. We're in the mainstream media every day now. They were trying to interview me all day yesterday. All different mainstream companies were trying to call me, message me, trying to get like a 20-minute interview about those cards just so they could try to destroy me. I sent a text message for their interview. One text. They sent back about a dozen questions. I just wrote no further comment. That spawned 3 separate mainstream media articles today. That's how worried they are about us. I was slandered by the biggest radio station in the country. I'm filing a lawsuit against them right now. So the mainstream media is scared of us. They know who we are. They know what we're doing, and they know what we can accomplish, especially when we work together. And my specialty is uniting people. I know how to talk to people. I know how to make them understand what's happening. And I know how to make them understand that the only way we go forward is together. no defunding the police, no racial tensions. Everybody come together because we have one goal. That goal is government accountability and getting our lives, our freedoms back, period. And that's something that applies to everybody, no matter who you are, how old you are, where you live, and we're doing it. So everybody's got to be happy about that. And when we talk again, I guarantee we're going to have more good news for you.
I love it, Chris. That is just fantastic. So where can everybody find you? Give the websites one more time as we wrap up.
My Facebook is Chris Sky, and I'll be back on there very soon. The groups are Back to Work on Facebook and MAD, M-A-D on Facebook. The websites are www.backtowork.bz. And then the MAD one is www.getmad.online. And yeah, we're going to be at Queen's Park on Saturday. We're doing our thing over there. On Sunday, we're doing a giant march all across Canada. Every province, every city is doing an anti-mask march. So I'm going to be speaking at the one in Hamilton because it's a city that's been trying to get a protest going and they've been having some tough time. So I'm going to bring a bunch of people there and help them out. So Sunday, I'm going to be in Hamilton with the anti-mask march, and we're going to keep this going. We're going to spread the awareness far and wide. We're going to educate people, wake them up. And more importantly of anything, we're going to get them mad at their government. Thank you.
I just love that, Chris. And I want to tell everybody, it doesn't matter if you don't live in Canada. I want you to hop on board because I'm like you. I'm like all hands on deck. Everyone has a role to play. And not even, but most importantly, to educate one other person. I call that each one teach one. And then it expands. And even when you go into the store, even if they want to hassle you about not wearing a mask, you had an impact. That had an impact. So everybody, jump on board with Chris and his Facebook groups and the websites, and then stay tuned because I really want to expand the Back to Work to the United States, and we can start in California. And it's a really important.
A lawyer willing to stand up to the government, and everything else I can put in place for you.
I just love it.
And we can get people back to work. I've helped people that had already lost their home. They were about a week away from losing their business. Families with 2 young girls. And they came out, and when I showed them, they had that clause in their lease and that their landlord owed them about $7,000 and that their business was not going to close, and now they had money and they were going to probably get their house back. Just seeing how happy they were and seeing how their little daughters were not going to have to experience being so-called collateral damage to these government plans, that was everything to me. And I know if I can make that difference for that family, I can make it for thousands and even hundreds of thousands of families. And then when we save those millions of jobs and we save that GDP to our economy, we give the people the power they need to say no. And that's what we want.
I love it. Just fantastic. Okay, well, we'll be signing off. Thanks everybody who joined us. And I'm at thehealthyamerican.org. So there's education and inspiration to take action. We are creating local groups in the United States. So even if you're not in California, if you are in Washington or Oregon, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Florida, Texas, New York, any state, and if you want to serve as a person who can help coordinate, let me know. Hop online there at thehealthyamerican.org. We've got our Facebook group, which is The Healthy American with Peggy Hall. And again, we've got numbers that are growing. It's so important to have moral support. You are not alone. There are millions who stand with you. I know how difficult it is. Sometimes you get sick to your stomach going into one of these stores like, why do I have to do this? You have to do it. This is a war. We are in a battle. We are warriors. There are going to be sacrifices. And my heart goes out for those who maybe are unable to do it right now. Don't worry. We are fighting for you. There is something that you can do. So I'm going to sign off for now. We'll have this available for a review and for watching again. So thanks, everybody. Have a great time. Keep up the good work, and we stand with you. Take care. Signing off now. Bye-bye.
You're amazing.
Thanks so much. You too. Take care, friends. Bye-bye.